Hari Hari Bo. Hare Krishna.
So thank you all for coming to the Lotus Room presents Vanaprastha Into the Forest. So tonight we have two amazing, world famous in the Iskcon world and even outside speakers. His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj and His Grace Pancharatna Prabhu.
His lowliness.
So they'll be speaking tonight. It's a nice opportunity to hear from both of them. One who's been in the renounced order of life for many years.
And one who's not.
And Pancharatna Prabhu did a nice exemplary Grihastha life. So it'd be nice to hear from both perspectives. Also, both of them are more or less from New York. So that's nice to hear that flavor also. And just quick introduction for those who don't know these great luminaries. His Holiness Jayadvaita Maharaj served here in the New York Temple for many years. He was the director of the BBT in 1988. And since then, for over 40 years, he's served as the senior-most editor for the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. So Maharaj is traveling widely now, and his recent book, Vanity Karma, achieved an award, the Benjamin Franklin Award, for the best religious book. So Maharaj definitely is very worthwhile mentioning accomplishments, and he happens to be serving here in New York now, Radha Govinda Temple. And His Grace Pancharatna Prabhu is joined in Montreal. Toronto, Canada. But he served here in New York from 1970 to 1976. And then in 76, he went to Mayapur, where he has more or less served since then. So,
he served, more or less. More or less. Yes.
So Prabhu is very, also he serves the GBC in many different ways. One of those ways being the Iskcon
Online.
Iskcon Online, yeah, and also Chant Now, I believe. Chantnow.com, yes. Very revolutionary website, preaching online and getting many new people interested in chanting the Maha Mantra. So now, tonight, we'll have them speak about the Vanaprastha Ashrama and its application in the modern world. So let's give a round of applause as we set up for the speaker.
And it's time for a cell phone check. Yes. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Sudakaya Chakshurmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupakoda Mahyam Dadati Shapadantikam. Thank you very much for coming. I should explain that please forgive the profile. I have cataract surgery coming up in a few days, and so the glasses are prescribed until then, and for a week after. In the Puranas it said, Varnashrama Charabhata Purushena Prapuman Vishnu Radyate Pantha Nanya Tato Shakaran. The way to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead is to follow the system of varnashram. In all Prabhupada's books, he speaks about the varnashram system, which is the Vedic system of social organization. There are 4 occupational sections, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and then there are 4 social sections, Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. So you can visualize them as being vertical and horizontal. These are the 4 ashrams and 4 varnas. So today we're talking about the Vanaprastha Ashram. Ashram means a spiritual situation, and these are adopted according to one's stage in life. From the age of 5 years old, Prahlad Maharaj says one should become a brahmachari. Brahmachari Guru Kule Vasantanta Gurorita Komara Atre Pragya Dharman Bhagavataniya. Then the brahmachari life, the brahmachari is trained how to be a humble servant of the spiritual master, how to develop, how to become a person of character, how to control the mind, how to control the senses. These are all how to engage in the service of the personality of Godhead. So then the brahmachari, either he can stay at the ashram of the spiritual master, or he can remain brahmachari for his whole life, or with the permission of the spiritual master, say at the age of 25, thereabouts, he can accept the grihastha ashram, married life. And then there are spiritual duties, spiritual cultivation in family life. But the family life in Vedic culture is not meant to be permanent. It's a stage, one of the 4 stages. It's not meant to be lifelong. Panchashortam vanam vraje. Prabhupada very often used to quote that by the age of 50, one must go to the forest. Vanaprastha literally means one who abides in the forest, vana. So one must go to the forest. Of course, in the present age, there are no forests, practically speaking, at least none suitable for spiritual activities. Maybe you can find something, but it's very difficult, and we're not equipped to live in the forest. In the previous ages, we find that kings like Prithu Maharaj and many others would go to the forest and practice austerities. They would live on roots and berries and fallen leaves. But in the present age, we're just not going to do that. We're not so capable. So, but Prabhupada said one can go to a forest like Vrindavan. In any case, we'll come to this a little later, exactly how to practice the Vanaprastha life. But the essential point is to move on from the duties of family life to the duties of the Vanaprastha. Then Vanaprastha life might last for 25 years, then there's sannyas. If we live 100 years, then the idea is 25 brahmachari, 25 grihastha, 25 vanaprastha, 25 sannyas. These are, of course, approximate, because we don't know that we're going to get 100 years. But this is the idea. So, in this Vedic scheme of things, one marries, one has children, and if we have children, say at the age of 25, by the time we're 50, the children are grown up, or at least the oldest will be completely, or will be grown up. And The idea is to hand things over. To hand things over to the next generation and move on. Move on means move on to detachment from this material world and attachment to Krishna and going back home, back to Radha. That's the purpose of Vanaprastha life. Detachment from matter, attachment to spirit. The mundane life, they have retirement, but they retire to a golf course, they retire to some retirement village, and they go on with activities for material comfort, material enjoyment. This is the misuse of human life. In the Vedic system, there's retirement, but it's meant for spiritual progress. This accomplishes several things at once. For the person who retires, there's this detachment and spiritual progress. There's also clearing the decks, because the next generation is waiting to take up responsibility, to expand their activities. And if the old, attached old men are holding on to everything, then it blocks the way of progress for the next generation. And the old men set in their ways become dull and just, what should we say, sit on things, they become a bottleneck, a barrier. They should move on, get out of the way, and make room for the next generation. Let the next generation come up and take over. So that's another reason for Vanaprastha life. The Prabhupada, as you know, told us that in his last days that only half of his mission had been accomplished. He'd done so many things, but he hadn't established Varnashram Dharma. Some years back, maybe 10 or 15 years back, Varnashram became a real buzzword in this country. Remember Pancharatna, all of a sudden, everyone was talking about
Centennial
Varnashram.
time especially. The Prabhupada centennial time was another time too.
That comes to mind, but what specifically comes to mind is that after all this brahmacharya life and gung-ho brahmacharya stuff, there was Varnashram became like a code word. We have to give more attention to Varnashram, and it meant householder life. It meant household. We need to give more attention to Varnashram, which meant householder life. Those voices have gone quiet because those people are no longer 40 or even 50. Now they're in their 60s and 70s. And for them now, Varnashram doesn't mean householder life anymore, or shouldn't mean householder life anymore. There's an interesting, very relevant quotation from Srila Prabhupada, which I will offer him. From Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila. It is not that a grahastha should live at home until he dies. Vanaprastha is preliminary to sannyas. In the Krishna consciousness movement, there are many young couples engaged in the Lord's service. Eventually, they are supposed to take Vanaprastha. And after the Vanaprastha stage, the husband may take sannyas in order to preach. The wife may then remain alone and serve the deity, or engage in other activities within the Krishna consciousness movement. That's Madhya 24, 259 purport. So it's significant here. This is 1975-ish, and there are so many young couples in the Krishna consciousness movement, and Prabhupada is advising them about their future duty. Don't stay in family life forever. Of course, there's no forever, but don't stay till you die. Get out. Move on to the next ashram. They are supposed to take Vanaprastha. Prabhupada's giving clear direction. Don't stay in family life. Move on to Vanaprastha life. And then you may also take sannyas, the husband. That means this Vanaprastha, this ashram system, is not just a theoretical construct from the old Vedic days. It's not something, nor is it just a two ashram or three ashram system. But this is what we should do. This is how we should order our human life, according to these four ashrams. I'm going to stop just a little bit and see if you wanted to add something, Pancharatna Prabhu, and then we could also take some questions and then we could move on.
There's two dimensions, I think, to what we could accomplish this evening. One is to understand what we've just heard and understand the general concept of Vanaprastha. And the other is to explore the practicalities for those who are moving in that direction, and what advice my wife and I might be able to offer. She's also here, Tita Goni. Vanaprastha is a joint affair. So that's that. From the theoretical position, from the philosophical position, what Maharaj has said already is, I think, quite clear that it's expected that anyone who enters into the Grihastha ashram, it's expected that they will progress. There are questions about that I have never heard proper answers to, because we've heard, and I don't know where this is quoted, but I've heard it quoted, but I don't know where it's quoted from, that for the Sudra there's only,
Yeah, I've heard that from Prabhupada.
Prabhupada said it, that according to Varna, and in fact there is one clear quotation where Srila Prabhupada says, Varna first, then ashram. In other words, depending on your Varna, your path may be different. If you're, apparently, if you're by nature a Shudra, then it's recommended to just get married as soon as it's reasonable, and stay married till the end. And I suppose that means you're also stay as a Sudra until the end. Right? That's your position. You work and you work and you work. That's what you do. And I'm told that the Vaishyas are expected to be brahmacharis,
Brahmachari
and then grihastha, and then they stay grihasthas. And they also work, but they make money and they attend. And one of the practical things there is that the Vaishyas are supposed to be growing food and taking care of cows. And so if they leave their cows, of course, they're supposed to raise children, and the children take over, But we've seen in farming communities, where farming is the way of life, that it takes every hand on deck, to maintain things. So perhaps that's one of the reasons why Vaishyas are recommended to stay in that way. But the Brahmins and Kshatriyas, Kshatriyas are recommended to go into Vanaprastha, but they're not supposed to take sannyas, from what I understand. And the Brahmins are given all 4 ashrams. But now this is something that we hear about, but how does it practically relate to us? Who are we, varnically? We also hear, when we hear about Vanaprasthas, we hear about different varieties of Vanaprastha life, different types, which you might have some information about and you can share with us. So I suggest perhaps we hear a little bit more about what the scripture says about Vanaprastha, and then we can talk about what it means to practically, for at least what it's meant for Tita Puna and I.
I'm going to talk about age. First of all, Prabhupada always used to quote, Pancha Shordam Vanaprajayam. Once you hit 50, that's the time for Vanaprastha life. Manu says when your hair starts to turn gray, when your skin becomes wrinkled, when you see the children of your children, time to get out, time to go. The Prabhupada gave the example one time that because Vrajate means it's not optional. This is vidhilin, the imperative verb. One must. One must get out. And Prabhupada gave the example that the shopkeeper has a store that's open from 9 to 5. At 5 he closes. It's not that he thinks, well, maybe a few more customers if I stay open. At 5 o'clock, come back tomorrow, we're closed. That's what we do. So, similarly, Prabhupada said, Vanaprastha, this is how it works. The time comes, we go. Partly because we're going to go anyway. One has to keep in mind that life in this body is not permanent. Either we'll give up our present responsibilities voluntarily, or we'll be forced to give them up, kicking and screaming. And the Vedic direction is voluntarily give up. Don't remain attached, trying to hold on. The archetype of the attached householder is Dhritarashtra. Literally the person who's holding on to the kingdom for dear life. And that very instructive chapter is there in first canto, Dhritarashtra Quits Home, full of relevant instructions about detachment in old age. Now, in some very practical terms, Vanaprastha life means detachment. Let's take it from Grihastha life. In Grihastha life, one builds up. Brahmachari is happy-go-lucky. He has no, I shouldn't say he's happy-go-lucky, but he lives with minimum of possessions. He doesn't worry about his livelihood. Simply, he has to serve the spiritual master. But when we marry, then we have to think about home. We have to think about raising children. We have to think especially about money, security. Therefore, we have to think about work. We build up our career. We build up our CV. We network to build our career again. And we buy things. We expand. Householder life involves expansion. For the spiritually inclined householders, it's not the willy-nilly expansion of the materialist, the mindless expansion, but still, by its very nature, it involves material expansion and engagement in material activities. Those material activities, when performed for Krishna, take on spiritual meaning, but they're activities for maintenance of our bodily situation. And therefore we often hear from grihastas, I have so little time for hearing and chanting, so little time for reading, I have so many duties. Because there's, the kids kept me up all night and so on. So many duties are there. And one builds up householder life. Vanaprastha life means just the opposite, winding down. Letting go, handing over, getting rid of unnecessary things. And the number one unnecessary thing, this is a requirement for grihastha, we'll get it the third time, Vanaprastha life, no sex. In brahmachari life, there's no sex. In sannyas, there's no sex. And in Vanaprastha life, there's no sex. The grihastha life, sex is part of the program, and it's considered a religious activity when performed in a manner not contrary to religious principles. But in Vanaprastha life, that's a cardinal rule, cardinal principle, no sex, because sex is the number one attachment to this material world. From Sustriya Maitini Pavameta. So in the Vanaprastha life, no sex. And at the same, and then there's more direction in Srimad Bhagavatam. It's not meant for birthdays and graduation. We see people, old men retire, and they're busy with this wedding and this birthday and that birthday and this graduation and this baby shower and this and this and this and this. That's not the business of the Vanaprasthas. The business of the Vanaprastha is to engage his time for spiritual realization. There's one older devotee in Fiji. He asked Prabhupada, what should be my duty? Prabhupada said, more japa. More chanting on your beads. Japa, kirtan, worship of the deity, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, preaching. These are, because in householder life, no time, no time, no time. Now Vanaprastha life, I've retired, I have time. That time should be used for these spiritual activities. And we can talk about the different stages and different types of Vanaprastha life. But I wanted to start there. And see, maybe at this point, if there's some questions, and then we can move on. Yeah. Do we have any questions on what we've spoken about so far? Yes?
You said that Prabhupada only finished half his mission.
Mm-hmm.
He never established the Vanaprastha Dasa.
That's what he said, yes.
Why wasn't it established? What was...
Prabhupada, I'm just repeating, Prabhupada said that I did so much, but I didn't do this. The more urgent thing, of course, is to establish the chanting of the holy name, to distribute books of Krishna consciousness. But then the Varnashram is the supporting system, the supporting social system to nourish or have a society, civilization congenial for spiritual advancement. But Prabhupada said that he hadn't. Another answer is, he didn't do it so that there'd be something left for us.
And you.
Yes, for you.
and many more, and many more.
Is there another question? Yes.
Maharaj, for brahmachari sannyasis, like a dress code, is there any
There's
like a dressing convention? Is there any dressing convention for
is there a
vanaprastha?
dressing convention for Vanaprastha life? Here's as much as I know. The saffron cloth is not appropriate for Vanaprastha unless the wife is completely out of the picture. If the wife is expired or separation is just so complete that there's not going to be any connection, then the Vanaprastha may wear saffron, otherwise not. He can wear white or another color. The yellow color may be accepted. Back, by the way, in the early days of Iskcon, the Grihastas all wore yellow.
Yeah.
The Vanaprasthas may wear yellow, because yellow is a color accepted by Grihastas who are undertaking a sacrificial performance or ritualistic performance. So they may wear yellow, or they may wear any other color. They don't wear this lungi that the sannyasis wear. Maybe that's the answer to your question. White, by the way, for the ladies is accepted when she becomes a widow. When the husband dies or the husband takes sannyas, then white. Everything color-coded in Vedic civilization. Any other question? Yes.
Maharaj, in this present time, how far has this Varnashram dharma being accepted in our Iskcon temples?
How far is a question?
Congregations?
How far in our Iskcon in the present time will Varnashram and especially Vanaprastha life be accepted? That's up to you. It's up to you how far it's accepted. The direction is already there. Everyone should accept this. Prabhupada said the young couples who are now there in the Krishna consciousness movement in the future should accept the Vanaprastha life. When they become 50, they should. So the direction is already there. Now, how far it's accepted, that's up to you individually. We don't have a police force that's going to go around and start pushing people into ashram communities or ashram situations. But it's for each individual to meditate on Prabhupada's instructions, meditate on their own situation, and say, what am I going to do? The tendency is to be attached. Why Brajate? One must go. Why is the Shastra saying that? It's because we don't want to. We're not eager to do that. Like the parents always have to tell the kids, get up, it's time for school. Because otherwise the kids will sleep. Right? That's, all things being equal, they'll stay in bed. So you have to say, get up, it's time to get up. So the Shastra is saying, time to get free from householder life. Because the tendency is to stay with the routine that we're comfortable with, that we're used to, that feels natural, and not move on. So the Shastra urges us, no, move on. And we don't want to, even Prabhupada told us that his Guru Maharaj was coming to him in a dream, take sannyas, and Prabhupada was thinking, horrible. I have to leave my family. Guru Maharaj is calling me. This is horrible. Prabhupada said. Well, the tendency is to want to stay. Even like Sankirtan devotees, new devotees, what do they want to do? They want to stay in the temple. Right? When the kirtan, when the book distribution party's going out, those who are not yet accustomed and enthusiastic, they, I'm not feeling so great today, or I was thinking I'd stay back today, or this or that. Until they get practiced and enthusiastic, then they're eager to go out. But till then, they're thinking, I don't know, and because it's warm in the temple and it's comfy, and in a few more hours the noon offering will come out. And so someone has to pull them by the arm and say, come on, let's go. And then once we're out there, we'll think, oh, this is nice. I'm so glad I'm out here and not rotting in the temple. So, do you have enough chairs there? Are you okay?
Yeah.
So, I'll come back.
But for someone to leave his house,
Someone to?
leave his house
Yes.
and his family, there should be an alternative arrangement.
Yes.
If
Well,
there is no alternative arrangement,
there's plenty. We'll come to that. We'll come to that. What is the system for Vanaprastha? First of all, let's make clear, sannyas and Vanaprastha are two different things. Sannyas, absolutely no connection with your wife, and you're not expected to be fiercely independent from all material connections. Even if it's also said that in Kali Yuga, no sannyas. But tonight we're not talking about sannyas. This is only Prabhupada said, the intermediate stage. The intermediate stage, Vanaprastha. And we'll talk next about, or we'll talk soon, about what do you do as a Vanaprastha? How do you hack it? How do you manage it? What are you actually doing? We'll come to that next. Anything else?
Only for men or also for women?
Well, that was there in Prabhupada's quotation. And again, we'll come to that a little bit as we speak about, what does this look like? Vanaprastha, we should enter the Vanaprastha Ashrama. Yeah, all right. Well, what is that? What practical shape does that take? We'll talk about that next, I think, because it's a natural progression. Anything else? Did you want to add something?
Well, perhaps in relation to the questions that have been asked, most of, I think that we do need to go deeper into the topic to answer them properly. In respect of your question, Ken, why there's been many analyses of Srila Prabhupada's strategies for spreading Krishna consciousness, and that give some illumination on his thinking and his feeling at that time. That and if you put it in the context of what he was speaking about in that year, particularly, he was seeing, okay, we've done this, we've gone this. Now we need to do these things. And in fact, prior to that specific comment, or perhaps before that, he was making plans to go to Gitanagari and to, in the words of Abhiram, to sit down and teach how to live off the land. So in other words, he had some vision about the movement that is seen in his original purposes of Iskcon. And if we just see, okay, this was done, but some of these things were not done. And like Maharaj said, you do what you've done. And something's not done, it goes on, and now it's up to us to serve Srila Prabhupada and in continuing those things which he saw as being essential aspects of Iskcon. So,
You reminded me of something, Pancharatna Prabhu, that those who attended Sureshwara Prabhu's seminar might remember that in the earlier years of the movement, Prabhupada was saying, this Varnashram is no longer possible in Kali Yuga, simply chant Hare Krishna, forget about Varnashram. And later, Prabhupada was saying that this
we need
Varnashram,
Varnashram.
we have to take up Varnashram.
And I personally believe, and Maharaj, you may, I don't know if you agree with me, that Srila Prabhupada, in saying that I will go there, I'll sit down, I will teach, he was revealing that this was something that would require action. You have to get into it, and then things get revealed. It's not, and I think that's also part of what Vanaprastha life will mean for us in our society. It's not. It's my view that it's not enough to just try to take from the past and from the old Vedic times and so on and say, okay, well that's Vanaprastha. We live in a different age, different times. We have different prerogatives, different. Our movement again is to spread the Sankirtan, and we see Varnashram as a tool. So, how exactly we use these ashrams and how we use the system of varnas is something that we're working out.
Thank you. I'd like to speak a little bit about the practical forms Vanaprastha Ashram may take. Again, the theme, no matter which track we take, is detachment. Gradual detachment from material life. Because if we take sannyas, all of a sudden, boom, it may not stick. It's too hard. And I take sannyas on Tuesday, and on Thursday I miss my wife and I'm going back home. So Vanaprastha Ashram gives the opportunity for gradual detachment, for purification of heart, for freeing ourselves step by step from this material world which we're going to have to leave. Now, I remember Srila Prabhupada speaking of at least 3 different systems of Vanaprastha life. Or let's take it this way. There are 2 choices or 2 ways that one may live Vanaprastha life. The husband and wife may stay together, or the husband and wife may stay apart. Prabhupada expresses this in some of the books as the wife may stay with the husband as a voluntary assistant or voluntary servant. So either the husband may stay out of home, and the wife stays at home with her grown sons, or the husband and wife may stay together. So this is one fork in the road, or one set of choices, together or apart. Now, whether they're together or apart, either together or the husband alone, may travel to different holy places. And this is a time-honored system of Vanaprastha life. We find that when Vidura left Hastinapur, that's what he did. He went traveling to different holy places. It was on the way, on this pilgrimage, that he met the sage Maitreya and received instructions in Krishna consciousness. Because that's really the purpose of visiting the holy places. It's not just to see the Jamuna, to see the Ganges, to see the Kaveri, to see this temple, to see that temple. That's purifying. But the real thing is to get the association of saintly people, devotees. So this is one system, to travel to different holy places. And in the holy places, there generally are, especially in the Indian holy places, there's some arrangement for pilgrims. If you go to Tirupati, if you go to Sri Janardhan, if you go to Rangakshetra, if you go to so many places, there are accommodations, dharmashalas, which are constructed by wealthy people or charitable people for pilgrims. You can stay 1 day, you can stay 2 days, you can stay 3 days. And there's a roof, there's a place to stay, there'll be some arrangement for food, and then you can move on. This is a time-honored arrangement. And still, I know from traveling with the Padayatra in 1985, 1986, we visited so many such places where there were different kinds of arrangements, sometimes really very nice, sometimes very simple. Some arrangement will be there. So that's one system, travel to holy places. A second system is stay in one holy place. Prabhupada said our Vrindavan was meant for that. He was unhappy when the Vrindavan guest house became crowded with families and children, because he especially wanted it for retired, Prabhupada said retired gentlemen. And in their old age, people could retire to Vrindavan, stay with the devotees, take prasadam, take darshan, engage in spiritual activities. Go to one holy place and stay. Mayapur, Vrindavan, Jagannath Puri, and there are many others. Stay in one holy place. I know my godbrother Vasudev from Fiji in his elder years. He was a successful businessman, very leading business family in Fiji. In his elder years, he was staying in Vrindavan. So that's another system. Vana means forest, so Vanaprastha, go to Vrindavan Dham, Vrindavan forest, and stay there. And these Iskcon should have such places for retired people. So that's the second system. And holy places now means also there's so many Iskcon temples, not just in India, old temples, but throughout the world. Our Krishna consciousness movement has so many temples. One may go and stay in a spiritual community, Iskcon community. Third system, and this was essentially, the third system is that the husband goes out of home and travels, preaches, associates with saintly people, and he comes back, sees how things are going on. All right, this is all right, this is all right, this isn't all right, we'll fix this, that. Then he goes out again. Then he comes back again. Then again he goes out, coming and going, coming and going. And then Prabhupada said, then one day he never comes back. So that's another system of Vanaprastha life. We can expand on these three models, or if I've left something out, but maybe now's the time to hear more from you.
Yeah, different ways to pursue Vanaprastha. And I've seen all these varieties in my godbrothers and godsisters. Some of my godbrothers they've adopted Vanaprastha with their wives at home, and they're traveling, and others travel together. I haven't, and I guess the third of back and forth, I haven't really observed that, but it's certainly there. I think, however, in all three of these, there was the concept of something being a progression, that you start on this path with a certain amount of attachment, and you gradually reduce it. It gradually becomes less and less. and becomes replaced by a different kind of life. So I think that was one of the main points that you were making about the difference between entering the Vanaprastha Ashram and entering the sannyasa ashram. And when you enter the sannyasa ashram, boing, it's absolutely, it's all gone. Throw it away. I'm told that you're considered socially dead.
Yes.
You practically, it's like you die. Not so in the Vanaprastha ashram. We my wife and I began this path years as the children were getting older and leaving home, and I know Srila Prabhupada talked about the age of 50, but I don't know. We also, I'm moving a little bit into the practical side of things here. There are a lot of similarities between retirement in the contemporary sense of it and Vanaprastha. And at least the Western world has systems to help people retire. Of course, their expectation is that you retire and you go to Florida or you go someplace and you continue your sense gratification in different ways. But still, there are systems to support retirement. We were just showing off today our reduced fare subway metro cards, half price. So, and these are all tied to not 50, but 60, 62, 65. So that's, for us, that was kind of more our target. We also married a little later than we were expected to in a varnashram system. So we get a little leeway on that as well. Tita and I were married now 39 years ago. So 39 years, but that still was, anyway, I'll let you guess the ages or whatever. I'm not going to say anything more about that. But still, for us, it was in the 60s that we really began to see that now we can retire. And I think that's another aspect that maybe is different and something that we have to consider for the future of our society is how do we facilitate the Vanaprastha Ashram for devotees. Most of grihastas do work. There's and if we husband our resources and we do things properly, then we will have the means. And I think that's another. I don't know what it says completely in Shastra about that, but I believe that, like one of the examples you gave, where the Vanaprasthis are coming back to their home and so on, is that there's a certain amount of resource.
Well, there's 4 stages of Vanaprastha life. You'll find them only briefly mentioned in the 3rd canto. But they're in the first stage, you stay like just outside your village. And people bring you food, and you're pretty secure. You're not there in the home anymore. You're not going to work anymore. But you know that all the people that you know are aware that you're living there at the outskirts of the village. They're bringing you food and so on. Then there's gradually, you just collect things from the fields, what's left. So it progresses. As you get increasing faith that Krishna will maintain me. Krishna is maintaining all the other creatures. Why not me? I can go anywhere. Prabhupada came to America with books and a little bit of cereal, and he was confident that Krishna will maintain me. But that kind of confidence may not come all at once. It's my job that maintains me, it's my pension that maintains me, it's my, I'm secure because I've got a good medical plan, and so on. But as one advances, one comes to the point, if Krishna wants me to live, I'll live. If Krishna wants me to die, I'll die. That kind of confidence. But because that doesn't spring up overnight, the same theme, gradual detachment.
Yeah,
gradual detachment.
and I would say it's not really so much a matter of a faith of whether Krishna will, keep me alive. It's how much sense gratification I want. It's, how comfortably do I want to live?
Yeah.
How, what do I want to enjoy? What do I want to travel and see things? And this is what I found, at least, is that, do I want, I want to have the money to get the phone that I like, things like that. Various, I won't go into all the details, but I find it, at least, to be a gradual process of, okay, for me to have enough money to not have to beg for it, to be able to maintain a house. I still have a house. We have a house. We have a house.
In Mayapur.
In Mayapur. It is in Mayapur. It's true. It's in Mayapur. And so, we're attached to it. And it's a facility. It's a facility for us to pursue a spiritual life. What's changed, really changed, is we don't work for money anymore. That's what's really changed. We don't, and if we had to choose, at least I don't know, Tita, we've never really talked about this that much, but if we had to choose between going back into the working world or, just cutting things down a bit more and maybe just finding a temple that would take care of us, or, we would probably, I think we would look first to see if aren't there some places, like here in New York. We've been very fortunate. We came here, and I've got a bed up with Ken and Bhakti Vinod, and we have a nice little corner to live in, and hot water in the shower, and prasadam every 2 or 3 times a day, and roof over our heads.
I was going to say, you say we have a house in Mayapur, but on the other hand, you're not in your house in Mayapur.
I'm not in, we're here.
Here serving
Yeah.
Radha Govinda. So this is Vanaprastha. I was going to say, I especially invited Pancharatna Prabhu to take part in this seminar because I'm very appreciative of how he and his wife have pretty much on their own just taken up this spirit of and action of Vanaprastha life, and by all signs they're very happy doing so, and I think setting a very fine example for others of moving on.
Yeah, doing things like, for example, now Tita and I, and this is where having I'll just put one of the things I wanted to mention here for all the grihastas here is, pay attention to Social Security, pay attention to those things. It helps, especially being able to gradually enter. Now, we retired at 62. I started at 60. I said, well, why wait, for the full Social Security to kick in and so on. I thought that means that we're going to have to work and pay taxes for another 3 years, So why not just take advantage and start as soon as it was possible, and it's worked out. Atita has been very fortunate because she's Australian. Australia is very generous with their age pensions, so you don't even have to work for it too. So it's so we've done okay, we had our, what we had. And because we now don't have to do any work, we are free to come here and start doing things like attend retreats. Now we're up to 3 retreats a year that, like pilgrimage. I mean, when you talk about going out, we live in a holy place, of course, in Mayapur, and we live here in a holy place, Radha Govinda Mandir, but we also like to travel to holy places, and the travel bug is something that maybe one of the last things that we get detached from. I don't know, the desire to see places and to go places. But what we've done is that we've joined that with the pleasure of seeing Krishna consciousness in places. So we go, like on the way here, we went to China, and we stayed with the devotees in Beijing, and we got to see Chinese practice and eat Chinese prasadam, which was not what you get in America. What you get in what they call Chinese food. I don't know where that comes from, but it's American Chinese food. But in China, it's a whole other cuisine. And at the same time, they were happy to take us to see the Tibetan lamasery, which we love to, and see, have some sightseeing type of things. In a few weeks, we're going to go to London and participate in the Janmashtami there, and stop in Ireland on the way and go to Innisrath and see that temple. And like this is another thing that I found, at least in this movement into Vanaprastha, means the traveling element, at least for us. And another Vanaprastha couple that is Anuttama and Ram Tulsi, who are, although he's still a bit attached to making money. So he still has his hands, and he's got 4 or 5 old cars in his backyard, and he sells them. But he's constantly going this place and that place to associate with the devotees, to see how Krishna consciousness is flowering around the world, and to participate in Krishna consciousness in Indonesia and Bali, and on our list is Africa. I'm really hoping we can get to Ghana, for example. I'd love. I mean, I know some devotees who come to Mayapur from Ghana, and they're just so wonderful. The devotees I've met, and I'm thinking how wonderful it'd be to see this, how Krishna consciousness is practiced in these different places. So that this is the kind of Vanaprastha life that we're pursuing, one that involves spending time trying to get to a place where we're always living in a holy place. And that's one of the things that I think Iskcon makes possible, that we can go from a dham like Vrindavan or Mayapur, and we can come to a dham like Radha Govinda Mandir. And so that one thing, to always have the facility of Mangalarti and all of those facilities, association with devotees. Secondly, to spend more time in intensive devotional life, where you're taking time out 10 days, 2 weeks at a time. A few years ago, Tita, wasn't able to do it fully, but she did the whole Vrajamandal Parikrama, 30 days, intense in Vrajamandal. I got to do 2 weeks, and I'm just wanting to do that. Govardhan retreat, Puri retreat, the Sadhu Sangha retreat. Building up your intensity of devotional holidays.
When I was in Padayatra in 1985-86, organized by Lokanath Maharaj, there were 40 or more Padayatris who were elderly Gujarati people who joined in Dwarka, the starting place, or thereabouts, and traveled all over India. And, different town or village every night, and chanting Hare Krishna the whole way, all spiritual program. And that was something that they undertook in their old age. And by the end of the Padayatra, several of them had taken initiation and so on. But it was certainly a transformative experience for them. And we had grandmothers, elderly people, but they were enlivened to take part in this Padayatra. I was also thinking of a point, because when you talked about sort of cashing it in at 62, the ashram system follows natural biology. Childhood is the time for study. The child, Prabhupada said, his mind is like a sponge. He can soak up so many things. He soaks up the examples of his parents, his teachers. He can learn whatever it is that he wants to learn. Childhood is the time for education. Youth is the time for family life, for children, for sex, for career. Old age, it starts to become a drag. Even the sex starts to become. There was a cartoon in the New Yorker, it's a man and woman both sitting up in bed, and it's not what it appears to be. The sex is lousy and we're miserable. In old age, sex is not anything to get up and cheer about. It's just not what it's made out to be. Work is no longer exciting. A young man beginning his career is thinking about all the possibilities, all the things he wants to do, the things that lie before him. When he's 50, when he's 60, it's done. He's not really going to, open a new chapter, start a new career path, and going into the office every day, or going to work every day, or whatever it is every day, starts to be a burden. It's just a plodding routine. It's like a tired, old, weary life. So that's a natural time for retirement. And the Vedic way takes advantage of it. It says, okay, start as a brahmachari, then become a grihastha. Now, get out. Get free from all this. Don't be a donkey carrying that burden on your back for the rest of your days. Biology is telling you that the end is near. So move on. So it's natural. But that natural progression is either ignored or misused. We ignore it and just keep working, or we misuse it. We want to, with the help of this or that or the others, be young and active and good looking and start another version of youthful life in our 80s. That's not what we're meant to do. So the Vedic program, the ashram program, is guiding us. Here's where you start, here's where you go, here's where you go next, here's where you go next. You just have to follow it. Do we have some questions?
Okay. So look over the three oceans, what you say, and look for the life Prabhu here with his wife. And I just think about it. I'm retired. So, like you say, it's you have to be disattached of all the material things first, and then you can move on. If you don't do it, it's hard to think that you're gonna make it. In his life, what I see is different than mine, because he got a lucky wife, and he stayed for so long, and they moving as the body. To me, it's getting too difficult because my wife is not the body. I try to be the body of my life, and I try to compare it. How can I do to go? I had to detach to some more kind of things to the wife, because she don't want to make it, and the way when I try to go, and it's difficult to compare it, the lives of the body or the lives the one to try to be at the body. You understand what I mean?
Yeah. This is one thing about, you're mentioning that we're talking about Vanaprastha life and the different ways for doing it. But what if the wife, as in your case, is not as inclined toward this sort of program? May perhaps not so inclined toward Krishna conscious practice, or not inclined toward detachment. So what do we do? One theme of Vanaprastha life, by the way, is that it's very individual. It's not that one size fits all, and every Vanaprasta's trajectory is going to be the same. The journey may differ according to how stuck we are, what's holding us back, what responsibilities we have, how determined we are, how cooperative our partner is. All of these questions come into play. I would say that an essential element is determination. Determination. The saying is, where there's a will, there's a way. If you're determined to become detached from material life, and you take whatever steps you can, one after another, then Krishna gives you further intelligence, what to do next, what to do next, what to do next. If I'm not determined, if I'm thinking, well, it would be nice to become a Vanaprastha one day, maybe 5 or 7 years down the line, then we'll die dreaming of Vanaprastha life. But if there's determination, one step, another step, another step, another step, and it becomes a reality. Like chanting, we begin 1 round, 2 rounds, 4 rounds, and then 16 rounds, which seems to be like, how do you do it? Becomes an ordinary daily practice. So maybe that's an opening thought. But that determination, because often, the way when we read Prabhupada's books, it's generally the wife who is reluctant to see this kind of detachment. Sometimes I've seen from practical experience, it's the wife who really wants to move forward, and the husband who's dragging his feet. But whoever's dragging, finally it's my individual life. You may or may not want to go back to Godhead. You may or may not want to be detached from the material world, but I do. And that's higher than the consideration of, doing everything together and sort of in step and harmoniously. We try for that, but if it's not possible, finally, I'm not going to stay in this material world for you, sweetheart. I didn't, that's not my purpose in life. To die in a congenial relationship. Finally, I have to get out and go back home, back to Baba. That's my purpose in coming here. Yes?
So you were saying that before, I think you said Kshatriyas, they typically don't take sannyas.
Pancharatna Prabhu was saying that, yes.
Yeah, and also that I guess Sudras, they don't, they typically stay Grihastha their whole life. I guess my question is, in American society where pretty much everyone is working, how does one kind of decide what they want to do? Because for me personally, I do want to get married, but at the same time, it's a lot less stressful to not get married, and then especially if you want to go down the path of Vanaprastha and then sannyas, it seems like a lot more complicated to do the married life and then have to deal with the
True.
detachment and all
This
that.
is the key to Vanaprastha life. There is a way to honorably avoid Vanaprastha life, and that is to skip marriage. If you skip marriage, you don't need to Vanaprastha life, because Vanaprastha life is for detachment from all the things that have happened during marriage. So if you stay brahmachari, then it's so much easier. Save yourself a lot of entanglement, a lot of expense, a lot of trouble. Prabhupada was always recommending the easiest thing is brahmachari life. If you stay brahmachari, your life is simplified enormously. But if one finds it too inconvenient and uncongenial, then one can get married, live in Krishna consciousness, then Vanaprastha life comes. For getting out, it's getting out the other end. You know, Vanaprastha, it's like you entering a tunnel. You know, you go in one end, you're supposed to come out the other. Not that you spend the rest of your life in the tunnel.
And there's also, in the modern society, there's a ashram, which is not an ashram, which is the unmarried, but not brahmachari. You know, where you're working, you're doing everything that a householder does. You've got a job, you've got, you know, a place, you've got your house, you've got your, you do all the things that, you just don't have the inconvenience of a wife. And
one ashram down from that is the serial grahastha life. You know, one should leave householder life at the age of 50, so you do, and then you start again.
yes, take another wife.
And you find another wife, and you know, it's the serial monogamy program. My analogy is that, you know, you're just about done. You know, you spent 25 years in jail, essentially. And now, just when you're about to be released, you punch the warden. And you're in for another 20 years. So the Vanaprastha life provides the right engagement. That now, I've done this, I've had, you know, whatever happiness there was in family life, I've had it. The flip side I've also had. So now, let me be done with it. That's Vanaprastha, that's the determination. I've done it, been there, done that, let me move on. Not let me go through the cycle again. Let me get free from this. Let me get free from sex life. Let me get free from working. Let me get free from material attachment and material activities. Let me move on. Let me move on toward Krishna. That's Vanaprastha.
I'd like to address one, because you mentioned working a few times. And I'm not yet quite clear about the role of work and Vanaprastha, because especially in my life, my work has always been pretty much, not always, but most of my working life has been in service to Iskcon.
That's
But
not work.
well, but I got paid for it, and
That's work.
you know, that was, you know, I was receiving a stipend most of the time. It wasn't just enough to maintain my family, etc. I was getting money from the society, so I was working in that sense. But I was also working in the other sense that I wanted to be doing things. I wanted, you know, I had and I still have this nature and desire to do stuff, to employ my various skills and talents, that capabilities in Krishna's service, and that ends up resembling what you would call work. You know, it's responsibilities, positions sometimes, and how that all comes together with the concept of retirement, the concept of traveling and just being detached from everything. You know, that's something that I've not personally at least, I haven't really come to full terms with, because I've seen some of my godbrothers who are in really pursuing the Vanaprastha Ashram. They they're just focused on traveling and preaching and studying scripture and chanting. What you mentioned to somebody that Prabhupada said to someone, what should they do? They should chant more japa.
Yeah.
Right? So
That's one thing, but the other thing is we see Prabhupada's personal example, that he wrote in the beginning, in a preface to an Indian edition of one of the Bhagavatam volumes, he said they see that we are moving in the paper market. They see that we are visiting the presses for printing our literature. They see that we are gathering money. So it seems to them that we're doing business under the guise of the renounced order of life. But Prabhupada makes clear that serving Krishna in these ways is completely different from doing business or material activities. So it's not that if I'm getting detachment from the world, then I lead a placid life of contemplation. I may. Prabhupada spent some years in Vrindavan. Even there, of course, he was getting his Bhagavatam printed, going to Delhi, struggling. But one may live in a sort of, traveling from place to place. Not exactly in an enjoying mood, but for purification. That's the actual reason for traveling. But then activity, to preach, to write books or distribute books, to open centers, to, in so many ways, try to spread the Krishna consciousness movement, to serve in the temples. This is one point that I've several times made about this topic, because people say, what about the women? There's so much opportunity for older women to serve. Atita Guna is setting the example. She's busy in the service of Radha Govinda. There's, all over the world, there's a shortage of devotees. There's a shortage of people to do this service, that service, and the other service. And the Vanaprasthas can therefore have a wide field for activity. There's so much that you can do. Serving the deities, leading kirtan, preaching, sewing outfits, taking care of counseling younger devotees who are confused. What do I do about this? Householder life and all of its ins and outs. Well, you've been through that. You know how to do it. You have the experience. They go and ask their Guru Maharaj. Guru Maharaj took sannyas at the age of 24. And he's supposed to be advising you about about your householder problems. The Vanaprasthas are well situated for doing that. They can travel place to place or stay in one place, and the householders can consult them. What do you do about this? What do you do about that? And people can take advantage of their wisdom and experience. If we look at the history of volunteerism in America, so often it was the older women. Widows or older women who are volunteering in hospitals, volunteering in charities, doing so much work. So that opportunity is there. It doesn't mean just sort of sitting at home, certainly not sitting at home watching Indian television or American television. That's, that's a different kind of civilly dead. That's like brain dead. No, be active. There's so much, it's like a new life. You're freed from all those burdens that you had to accept just for earning a living or maintaining things together. Now you have freedom. All you have to do is serve. A little more you have to do. You have to keep body and soul together. But main thing is now you're free for serving. Hearing, chanting, serving. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Archanam, Vandanam. Kirtanam means preaching. Free to preach. So it's like a new life. You're released. So it's an adventure. I have another Vanaprastha seminar coming up. I've called it the Vanaprastha Adventure. Because it is. Now you have an opportunity to, you've closed the door behind you. now you can move on into new experiences, new realms. Not, again, with the mood of enjoyment, but with the mood of self-purification and in nourishing and enlivening our relationship with Krishna. Yes?
Well, I have a question on something you mentioned about the single unmarried men.
Mm.
Like neither brahmachari nor grihastha, like a brahmastra or the Bhishma ashram.
It could be.
The Bhishma ashram. So is that even bona fide? A single man working but unmarried, is that?
There is a position called the snatak, which is the person who's graduated from Gurukula but not yet accepted the Grihastha ashram. So there is that in-between position, which often would be generally characterized by the student has left the ashram but is not yet married and is engaged in his profession, most likely in an apprentice type of environment, or assisting and so on. But it's understood that marriage is coming, and I that would be, to continue in that way doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. Why would you do? If you're not preparing to marry, and you're not preparing to create a household and serve Krishna in that, through the Grihastha ashram, then become a brahmachari. Be brahmachari. Live as a brahmachari. But if you're working, why do you work? To make money, etc., if you're not planning to establish a house and so on. There's only one answer that I can think of, and that's sense gratification. But I happen to have personal experience with
I just need to know
close
for
relation.
Is there prasadam for the people who are leaving early? I think for the people who have to leave, there is prasadam for you, and Dasya Prema will see to that for you. I'm sorry.
And the thing is that I think you have to really examine, why should I continue like that? If you really feel that you don't need to be in the Grihastha, you have no attachment that is pushing you in that way, or responsibility, then you should accelerate the program and begin the detachment process soon. On the other hand, if you see that you need to go through that for so many different various reasons, then as you're going through the Grihastha ashram, when you begin your Grihastha ashram, you have that goal in mind. I'm going to do things in such a way. I'm going to, I'll get myself a little place in Vrindavan or Mayapur where I can start my process of detachment. Because I would suggest that having there may be other places that are affordable. The reason I'm talking about Vrindavan and Mayapur, one reason, of course, it's a holy dham, etc. But it's also very affordable to begin your spiritual retirement. Some places even in New York City may be able to provide affordable housing close to a temple, because those are the two requirements. If you want to really begin this kind of life, you have to be within really walking distance of a temple where you can associate and go for Mangal Arati, and you can do all the regular life, the bhakti yoga life fully. Otherwise, what's the idea? That's the idea. You're going, for Grihastha ashram, to maintain my family, to do all these things. Okay, I've got to follow, the job is taking me to Kalamazoo, and I've got to go there, and I just do the best I can. I set up a temple in my home, I do my Mangalarti, I do everything there, I chant my rounds, I do the best I can. And I read, etc. But that's not, and that can become comfortable. That can become something that, I'm doing this, is okay, I can continue like this. But the idea of Vanaprastha, of setting that target, is that I'm going to up my game here, I'm going to get into service full time. I'm going to get into the, Sankirtan. I'm going to get into, I'm going to, instead of chanting Mangalarti by myself or with my wife and a few kids, I'm going to come and join, 20 other devotees, and I'm going to up this. I'm going to step up the intensity. I'm going to get into that. And you need to plan for it. And make it, make your plans to do that. Now you can do it sooner. Skip, like Maharaj said, skip the Grihastha Ashram and go straight for that. But that's where we're headed. Not this, to get full on. Hare Krishna.
I have a question. It's like a follow-up to my last question. I think you mentioned it, Maharaj, about if you take Vanaprastha or sannyas too early, you still have these desires or these attachments.
No, Vanaprastha, that's sannyas.
Okay.
For Vanaprastha, it's not really a question of too early.
Okay.
Sannyasa is another story. Sannyasas tu mahabaho dukkham aptuma yogata. Krishna says, for one who's not purified in heart, sannyas can just become a cause of misery. But Vanaprastha Ashram is the ashram you don't have to be so detached to accept. A step at a time, a step at a time, a step at a time. Practical suggestion I've made for people who are serious about Vanaprastha, just illustrating the step at a time principle. For so many years, you've slept in the same room as your wife, different rooms. You don't. How big a change is that in terms of expenditure or geography or anything? But now my consciousness is changing.
Yeah.
My consciousness, by that simple thing. Then what else can I do? What else can I do? From one point of view, Vanaprastha's life of austerity, increasing austerity, means voluntary inconvenience for spiritual advancement. The more we can accept that kind of inconvenience to make ourselves voluntarily less comfortable, the more we make advancement. It's not expected that we'll make ourselves so uncomfortable that we can't live, but doing without needless necessities. Step at a time, step at a time, step at a time. That was kind of like a sad thing to my main point, because when you said that, I guess if you take sannyasa too early and then you have these attachments or desires, you won't stick with it. Like me, I have these desires to have a family, get married, and all that stuff. But like I said before, I don't want to develop all these attachments and then have to go through all the pangs. Well, too bad.
So,
If you want to be married and all of that, but you don't want to have all the burdens of family life and all the complications. Well, choose one or the other. If you want family life without complications, burdens, and so on, you are dreaming.
Well, my question was, do you have any advice for how to not become so attached?
Yes.
In their life?
Then your dream will be fulfilled. That you live in family life, but make your real purpose to become Krishna conscious, to chant Hare Krishna, to have a Krishna conscious family. Then as far as there's any happiness in family life, you'll have it. As far as there's detachment in family life, you'll have it. Even we have here living with us, Devaprastha and his family, who, they're a real family, 3 kids, and so on, but they're really focused on service. They're really focused on service, which doesn't mean that the kids are, left to play on the fire escapes and so on. They're doing all the things that they need to do. But what's in the forefront of their program? It's service. When Prabhupada sent the first 3 Grihastha couples to London, they were Grihasthas, they were married, there was a kid in the picture, but their focus was how to spread Krishna consciousness in London. So when you put Krishna's interests always in the forefront, you'll get the best possible deal for householder life. And that also makes it easier when you want to come to the next stage, because you're already practicing detachment within family life. You can move on from family life to the next stage.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you. We do have another 12 minutes. My sense is that it's getting late enough, and unless there are any, pressing questions, we could end here. Not like we've taken a contract to go till 9. We're not getting paid. So. Okay. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you all very much.
Hare